Let's
Hope that it works.
it's working.
Yeah, because if my microphone's on, will it zoom into me?
I hope so. We're on mute, so I gotta see if Jason can hear us. Jason,
hear
can you
you.
hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, thank you.
Doesn't zoom in, I won't be heartbroken.
Go try talking.
What?
You can try talking. And see if
I did try talking.
It didn't zoom in.
It didn't zoom in on me.
Maybe because we have microphones and we're talking quieter now, that thing, see, I have raised my voice.
That's hilarious. You shared it, but you didn't even watch it? Okay. All right. I think we are off of mute. Are we off of mute?
We are, yes.
Okay. Live on YouTube, and we're just after 6, so we'll call the meeting to order. Kathy, roll call, please.
Mayor Bean,
Here.
Councilmember Chapman,
Here.
Councilmember Furby. Here. Councilmember Scanlon. Here. Councilmember Skug.
All right, thank you. Then we will move on to agenda comments. If there is anyone who is from the public who would like to provide comment on the on either of the agenda items, they may do so. Since there is no one present in the room here, we'll go to Zoom. Jason, is there anyone on Zoom looking to provide agenda comment?
Nobody on Zoom.
All right, if there's nobody on Zoom, there's no one here, then no one can provide agenda comment. We'll move on to the agenda items, the first of which is discussion related to the 2022 proposed budget.
So truth in lending, this has all sort of been as much of, go ahead.
Joey just texted me and said there's no sound on the picture.
Hmm.
I'm asking her if it's on YouTube.
Jason, you are able to hear us, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yep, no, thank you. So with Jason, I'm talking Jason, sorry, Jason. With Jim's departure, Jim and I were trying to work back and forth through some email and some other methods. So what I gave him was the full list of stuff that we had talked about during our budget guidance. I asked to have no change to last year's budgets for any department. Then the library submitted a library board proposed budget, and to my knowledge, that was included, but I can pass this around if you want to see. Jesse did all the work and went it through the library board. Library board recommended its approval. It was about 61,000 when you take all the salaries out. And then there was a lot of roadway changes that happened this year, so I asked Jim to make sure we captured that. So again, $95,000 is captured as roadway money spent now for next year. $1 has to be spent this year, and we've done that. They're mobilizing equipment as part of that spend requirement for this year. And then with that 95,000 comes $495,000 of MDOT grant to do the repaving of Empire Street. We were awaiting ARPA funds. ARPA funds have arrived for the first payment, the first half of ARPA funds. So it's payment 1 and it's half of what we're supposed to get. So we need to discuss somewhere in the near future the approval to utilize the water lines that we found laying in the yard, which would then, with some additional money, which I got to get that final figure from UPEA, I think it's between 200 and 300,000. We would be able to completely redo all of the water along Empire Street and then put it under the new road that's being done. And that would also extend repaving from Main to Oak. So the Empire is through to Main. Main to Oak did not get covered, but it would finish Main to Oak, and then you would have new lines, new road, Oak to 3rd. And then MDOT category B, there's 213,700, which is the city match, to an additional now 213,700, which will allow us to do a pairing of roadway, water, and sewer projects, and those were projected at Prairie, Lower Bigelow, Houghton, and then looking at some city lining if there's some additional water still left for water and sewer. So that water sewer portion hasn't been calculated to my knowledge yet, but that will be combined funds in the neighborhood of $710,875 being done next year in the spring. And so that was asked to be looked at. And then the roadway project at large, we're still working. We did confirm that that farm road is city-owned. It is city right-of-way. There's a little section that's still in question at the upper portion, but it was beyond where we were worried about the repair. That's the piece going to Bell Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
When we looked at it last month, there was, the county map showed it all being owned by the village, not by city, but we have the city records that show ownership.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Are we gonna put some curbing on that, so when the water keeps draining, that?
So that was the discussion last month, is if we can get anybody to do it this year yet, we will. They were trying to work out getting Lindbergh and Superior Paving to work with us to be able to do something. We would cut back 2 feet into the asphalt and then put in a solid curb, think using concrete versus asphalt, and then matching the asphalt back to it to fix that, and then having some drainage that pitches off into the drainage area rather than washing all the way down the street. And that would be the discussion, trying to get this current year about $91,000 spent. So that was a discussion, and there were supposed to be coming in, and I haven't seen them yet, the 3 bids for that, Marquette Street and Dawson. Those were the 3 bids we're trying to figure out if we can get something done this year. It's getting tighter and tighter, especially with the weather changing on us. And then we're working with documenting the campground fund, 15,000 from the general and 15,000 from public improvement. So all of that should be in your budget. And then additional projects which are still outstanding. We funded the structural analysis with course of action decision briefs to follow, but that has not been done yet. We're contacting Tunnel Vision to scope underneath the Public Works building. We're not sure why all the water is washing the dirt underneath. So we're trying to figure out if that's a possibility of a mud jacking or if that's something else, so that we had to get some camera scopes. So there is some ongoing analysis, but it's not moved very far. But that included the fire tower, the library columns, the fire station floor, the DPW floor, the police basement drainage. And then there was some discussion about seed fund for blight mitigation and whether or not we'd fit in DPW and police parking lot being finished, especially in front of the DPW bay area, turning that into concrete so it doesn't get ripped up as the big wheels turn, loaders and stuff turning there, ripping the asphalt pretty bad. And then making sure we captured completely the 2021 through 2023 lease captures. So Jim had all of that information, plugged that in, and that's what is in front of you as your budget. If there's any, so this is really about making sure I didn't miss anything in capture, and then as you go through it, make sure we didn't miss anything. Given that Jim's doing this as a side job to help us in addition to his job to finish this budget year, and if it's not significantly detrimental to your concern, like you're not really overly concerned, I'd say get the budget through the system this year and make adjustments as we need to. Remember, the ARPA funding is gonna mess things up. We now just finished the MERS bonding. That's gonna change our budget picture, because that's, I think the statement from the PFM was approximately $290,000 a year in savings that we won't have to be paying down pension, that we now need to think about maybe paying down the 5% that isn't funded. So there's still some budget discussion to have that's not been included in this because we were still in the process of the pension bonding. And then we also had that rebonding, or we called it rebonding of old debt. So anything older than 11 years got rebonded. There was some savings there that we've got to look to make sure it got captured. If it didn't get captured, we got to get it captured in here. But overall, what I try to do for this year is just keep us on a even plane with directorate funding, managing all of the changes to all the different things, and then incorporate your guidance from the spring guidance. And then we'll manage the eaches, like Steve and I have been working on camera projects, and when he says I can get a little bit more, we had some change to the grant, the way that worked. We re-granted, we went and found a little, a couple extra $1,000 to make sure some extra cameras got in place. We had some donations from North Country Disposal, gave us some donations of almost $5,000, which helped with some electricity to those cameras. We were able to get more cameras. So we've been working the eaches of individual budgets where they come up. I'm working one with the Parks and Rec right now, getting tubes. Their budget is about $800. They need $1,500 to replace some tubes to their normal starting of 60 tubes this year. So I talked to Caitlin and folks and said, we need to leave their $800 budget alone. We need to find this $1,500 somewhere else within the budget. So we're working those eaches, trying to keep a balanced, straight platform for now. And that's what you should be seeing in here. If there's something that we completely missed, we need to make sure we address that in the November meeting. And then if we need to have a subsequent meeting following that, we could. But I didn't want to spend too much time on this unless you had any specific questions. I just wanted to let you know what was in front of you and how we got to it.
Your Honor, I think it's probably one of the better budgets that I've seen in my few terms here. We're, as always, we're presenting a balanced budget, but we're not drawing a lot of funds into it to make it balanced. And again, it's a living document. It's not, that's it, close the book, you're done. It's stuff that we change all throughout the entire year. So I think we're probably in pretty good shape, really.
Yeah, Your Honor, I'd like to echo what Councilmember Scanlon says, and having kind of done a little bit of chatting with some local officials across the state, we're actually coming out much better than most other communities. So this is really, really pleasant to see this.
Well, I would say that, I think unless I don't believe I'm reading this incorrectly, but this is the first time for 2021 anyway. This is the first time that we've actually achieved Jim's worst case scenario of drawing from the general fund, putting us 233,000 in the hole essentially into the general fund, which is the first time every year that I've been a part of this, he has said our worst case scenario is about 200,000 into the general fund. And this is the first time we've actually achieved that. That being said, next year's projection, 2022 general fund budget shows a reduction in fund balance of 187,000. So about the same as is typically projected. That being said, I think we took on a lot of projects this year. And I know that early in the year, we did sort of say like, okay, we need to put an end to a lot of these projects and halt and get them taken care of. So I'm not overly concerned about that, but I do want to kind of just point that out, that that is the first time that we have achieved that since I've been here. However, I'm also a big proponent of the fact that you do have to spend some money in order to make money. And that we took on a lot of projects and we did a bunch of things differently. And I do think that we will see that come to our benefit in the future. However, it is noted that we have spent the money or some of the money to make the money. And I do think that some of the savings that we will see in the long run and some of the additional fund generators and the addition of, the reorganization of the org chart and the addition of some additional staff may help to realize that also. And then kind of to that point also, I think Stu had mentioned this before, maybe several years ago, we were talking about what the balance of the general fund is and maybe what it should be. And I think that rather than talking about what the general fund's balance is or is projected to be, I think we should start talking about what we want it to be. Which in some regards is that we don't want it to drop below what we currently have because everybody would like to see that fund grow. But earlier this year, I did a MML training for newly elected officials, and they talked about what was a desirable general fund balance. And I don't remember the specifics of it, but I do, it was something like 25% of your
25%.
operating budget, which I think we had done the math was 500,000. I thought it was closer to 7.
5%.
Oh, 5%. Okay, that sounds more correct, which I think was around 700,000. So I'd like to know what that 5% is, and if we could identify a target for what we would like the general fund to be. Because you obviously don't want to spend the general fund down too far, and then you don't have anything for a rainy day. But on the other hand, we have a lot of things to pay for. And so if we are, we were at 900 and some thousand, getting closer to 1 million. But if we've got stuff that we've been putting off doing, but we're squirreling away money into the general fund, that's not doing us any favors either. So I'd really like to see us find a target for what that could be and should be, and then work to sticking to that.
I think we also, in addition to that, have to look at like our capital improvement fund, which is always kind of a undefined pool. And I think we're doing that. We've done it in the last 2 budget sessions. But I think it's a huge fund. And it's always been rob Peter to pay Paul thing. So if we control some of those outlying, and we don't have our portfolio invested yet, do we? Reinvested our bonds and our perpetual care money and.
Well, it's a perpetual care, no. I gotta look at others, right, no. But I think the answer to your question is no, we do not.
The
Perpetual
bonds-
care for sure. We just redid all the rebonding. So I've gotta see what is left,
Okay,
if there's
so-
anything left that we can't
Gotcha.
look at. But I
So we
know the
got the bulk
perpetual
of that
care is
done.
separate. We did the bulk of it with the rebonding of old debt and anything that could be bonded. And then we did the MERS, and now the perpetual care is, that's
we-
on my target list.
Do we
as far as
shop
what we can
our
do.
bank bonds? Like we have M-Bank, do we shop those at all? Because I always remember we're gonna,
Well, I can tell you how the bonding went for this round. It went on the stock exchange.
well, that was
And-
just the
and
MERS though, wasn't it?
I know, I don't know I thought they did that same thing with for the rebonding, except I wasn't involved in the live screen. So Jim was doing that, so I'm not sure if Jim was looking at the same live bonding or if they did it separately. My guess is the way we went through the getting our S&P rating was so that they could go out into the bonding market.
Right.
And then bond it out. So it is competitive across the market. I just don't know if they stay local for that other rebonding. I don't believe they did. I don't think there's any restriction on our local market from getting involved in.
Well, I think on those investment bonds, there is restriction. Isn't it, Stu, from like if just 50,000 as a number? If they bought a $50,000 10-year bond at M-Bank, we're locked for the 10 years at.
Oh, yeah, no, you're locked for the rate for the years.
Correct.
And-
So
and
have
there's
we
a
looked at that at
rate.
all to?
And the debt that could be refinanced was refinanced. It had to be
Right,
older,
and-
it had to be
and I
older
think-
than 11 years.
And I think that's fabulous, but what I'm saying is our investment money.
Yeah, I've got to look into the next
Okay,
step.
okay, yeah,
The next step includes perpetual care, but I'm not sure if there's others there.
yeah, sounds good.
I don't know all the answers to that question right now.
One thing, though, I also want to say is that the staff has done an excellent job, because I don't want to name any communities, but there are a lot of communities that are coming out of the pandemic in debt. Their projection is to be, actually in debt, and we're not. And, that, and we were, I believe, one of the only communities that actually stayed open.
The only one in Marquette County.
The only one in Marquette that stayed open, paid all of our employees through the pandemic, and we're still coming out to the, good. I know that was some concerns from people in the community, but, you guys have done an excellent job.
And the other constant that's out there, that it's a constant unknown, right? You look at the census data, the census data says that we're losing people in UP. Across the UP, there's a problem. There's a push to look at regional efforts. We're looking at a regional effort within Marquette County for an EDA grant. But one of the topics at the managers conference was, is there something that could be looked at like across the entire UP? The buy-in across the UP, because of the vast difference in sections of the UP, is a little harder to sell than regionally across the county. But the decline in people is having an impact. But then the fact that Marquette is full and they're pricing out is pushing people down our way, is helping us out. So it's hard to say what that constant factor is, because right now it's hard to see it. It's hard to see a loss in your mind's eye, because you see businesses growing. You start to see properties that were vacant starting to be taken over.
Cognition's back, Velodrome, the bike shop is expanding, the, power sports is becoming Ride North in the Shopko. I mean, we're fortunate, I think, in a lot of ways, to see some businesses expanding to Ishpeming.
Your Honor, if there's no further discussion to be compliant with our charter, I'll make a motion to accept the budget as it's presented tonight. Oh, yeah.
I think we're just.
You're
and
just
we don't
having,
have
you're
any-
just looking to
ready to
see if you have
support
any issues, things you want me to address before next month's
Yeah,
meeting.
move forward with the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah, I'd like to know the general fund target.
So I mean,
Be good to know.
so are you I guess, I took that as a note, but I guess the target comes from the council, wouldn't it? Or do you want me to set a target of what I think is reasonable?
want the
You want to know what the
5%.
Yeah, I think what
you
the
want to know what the
5%
5% is.
Yeah,
And-
and then I
and
think
then-
we could make adjustments from there depending on what we thought, but
So
yeah,
right now, the target is 5%. You'd like to know what 5% is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I can do that.
okay, thank you.
I will make sure that's part of the
Do we
discussion.
need a
for-
motion to move?
think we
I
need
don't-
anything now.
no, I don't
think.
Nope. Then we will move on to item number 2,
Okay, sorry.
which is a request for a temporary overhire for an office manager / deputy treasurer position with proposed transition.
So, hopefully it's not new to you that I proposed an org structure change that we've been working with DPW in particular as to which direction we might head as we negotiate some contract language and some other things. But one of the things that I think is sort of lacking and having an impact in City Hall is organizationally, there's not really a figurehead, a leader in the front office. And there's a lot of distance, while not physically long, the day-to-day in and out oversight of the manager's office to the front office is a greater distance than I really gave it credit for at first. And looking at that, we had proposed having somebody be in charge of that front office as an office manager who can steer the training and the cross-leveling and making sure that when somebody goes on leave, there's a backup and it's not just, hey, we got to put this work on the side because somebody's not there. This came to light even more than recently as Caitlin has told me in several conversations about her performance, that she has 2 home-based businesses that she's working on. And one of them's doing really well, one of them's doing well. And she's looking to transition to managing those home-based businesses within the next 6 to 12 months. So given that I have a finance director missing and no one applying for the position, Plant Moran stepped up and is helping us out under contract to keep that afloat. The treasurer is also looking to go out, and we would have problems with payroll and accounts receivable, accounts payable, and taxes. And so the thought is, let's get after having an office manager / deputy treasurer. And as Caitlin transitions out, this person would be trained to become the treasurer and move into that treasurer position full-time, and then hire back a part-time deputy treasurer, which right now I have authorization to hire 2 part-time personnel. And we've been trying to analyze what was right for the office, and this is really more on target. So I'd like to be able to do that. And also this afternoon, we got word that Vicky has given us her resignation, that she'll be leaving in the next 2 weeks to a full-time position at the hospital. So it's really become a critical mass effort. Timing is perfect, I guess, that I'm presenting it to you tonight, the same day I got notice of the resignation, but I will certainly go back and fill that part-time position as well. But would like to overhire to a full-time position instead of hiring that part-time, and transition this plan and then come back to a part-time deputy treasurer over time.
One thing, Your Honor, I think personally I would support this. I think it's a different attack on the problem than we've done in the past. It seems to me that we've too many times done the minimal. What do we have to do to get by? And it's very refreshing to see a manager that looks a little bit in the crystal ball and says, well, you know what? We've got this, that, and the other thing that are happening. So I'm gonna ask if you guys will give me permission to overhire, and we'll back it down a little bit for a change and build a job for what we need. And I think I'll make a motion that we do authorize him to start looking for a temporary, what did you want to call it?
It would be a transitional full-time office manager, which is also the deputy treasurer, and would manage some HR functions.
I'm going to support this with a quick discussion. Is this something that we're going to have to work with the union on, which I'm believing it is?
This is currently a salaried position.
I thought about that, and the reason I don't believe so is because we're doing it as a transition to the treasurer. The treasurer position is not
Okay.
Considered a union position, and because they would retain the office manager at some point / treasurer responsibility. They become the office manager and the treasurer, which is not in the union at this point. So it's
I
a
think it
transition.
would probably be a good gesture to give JT an email or a call and just bump them and fill them in on what's happening,
Yep.
just as a courtesy.
Well, sure, I mean, I wouldn't want to do that without the consensus of the council saying, yeah, we're gonna move in this direction.
Right.
The other thing that I didn't bring up yet is on page 4, I did the rough estimate on the salary, and the proposal is that $47,500 annual salary. The reason that proposal is where it's at is it was slightly less than the current treasurer and slightly more than the next highest person in the office. You can't office manage and be paid at or lower than the
Correct.
rate below. So that salary puts them right between with, basically, as we transition that person to treasurer, they would be able to be eligible for a $1,500 bump up and be the office manager / treasurer in that 6 to 12 month range.
Got no MERS this time.
No, it
Defined
would be the
benefits.
defined benefits plan, yep. And then I, just kind of listed the
Yeah,
stuff that's listed
what I
under
was-
that
it's-
non-bargaining units. It's
Right.
a merged pension, yeah.
Yeah, defined contribution.
Yeah, defined contribution.
Yeah.
See, there we go.
So a question that I have is if this is the office manager who will be functioning as the deputy treasurer while the treasurer is still here, does the deputy treasurer have supervisory function over the treasurer while the two?
No, so currently there's no office manager position.
Right.
So this person is the office manager, manages the workload
Okay.
of the office. From the finance side of the work, they get finance direction from the treasurer as the deputy treasurer.
Okay.
As managing the office and the front office, not the finance office, but the front office.
Gotcha.
They are the office manager.
Gotcha.
To manage the utility billing, the front cash, the DPW clerk and other functions that are happening up there, and making sure that we're cross-leveling people and making sure that there's more than one deep in any function.
What happens if the treasurer decides to stay?
I guess that is a bridge that would have to be addressed, but I had a conversation with the treasurer yesterday, no, today's Monday, Friday, and confirmed timeline with them. They said, I didn't want to put him on the spot and say, get out, you've given us a transition and go. And they're confident that they will be departing in that.
From knowing that person, I agree. I'm 99.9% sure this is gonna happen. It's been in the works for a long, long time.
I mean, they committed that this was the timeline is built between myself and them, and they've committed to that timeline. So at some point, I guess we would let the treasurer go within the 12 months. I mean, maybe it's the 12th month, but they're anticipating that. They agreed to the 6 to 12 months, and I specifically said, should it be 3 to 6 months? Should it be 6 to 8 months? You know, what is it? And that number was agreed upon between the two of us. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue after 12 months.
Okay, good. Then there was a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this?
I would like to make one more comment, I'm sorry. I talked to Mike Grentz from our accounting firm. They're our audit accounting firm. And I just wanted to make sure that as we do this transition and this person's learning the finance department and learning the treasury roles, there's some things that are by charter required to be separated, finance and treasurer.
That's where I was just gonna go
And-
with this, was
and
how does
so-
this work with the charter?
Yeah, so I confirmed with our audit company that there are some functions that this deputy treasurer can do that would be separate from the treasurer's office, but learning the roles and the functions to keep some things afloat. So one example was, there's some grant reporting that's going on where we're receiving invoices, we're paying invoices, grant money's coming in, grant money's being paid out. Some of those are the finance side of things, not the treasury side of things, especially the reporting. And as long as those are kept distinctly separate between those two people, it is not a conflict within our audit trail and accounting and within our charter. So it gives us some flexibility as well within our finance department to pick up some things that may have been, that are day-to-day journal that really isn't a Plant Moran function.
And we are still actively searching for a finance director, correct?
We
to
we
put
do have
this
an
on
active,
record.
we
Thank
do
you.
have an active announcement out there. And we just keep renewing it until someone applies, and then we'll just screen them as they apply.
And in the interim, the plant.
Plant
Moran-
Moran is doing the things that they promised to do under their contract.
Call the question.
All right. Jason.
I did, yeah.
All right. All those in favor of the overhire for an office manager / deputy treasurer position, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Then it
Good job,
passes.
Craig.
That's the end of the agenda.
And that is the end of the agenda.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.